This is Shelf Space. This one's going to be fun. I'm sitting down with a friend who just hit a massive milestone, 10 years in the game. A decade ago, he traded the polished world of creative agency life for the high-stakes, high-octane Wild West of the craft beer industry. I'm talking with Josh, the founder of GoodLife brand collective, most notably Fieldhouse Brewing and Nice Life Cocktails. Josh is a founder who is redefining what it means to scale a portfolio of craft brands through innovation and acquisition. In this conversation, we peel back the label on beer, cocktails, and the massive non-alc boom that's turning your local beverage aisle into something new and, in some markets, relatively untested. From the grit and hustle of community engagement to the eye-opening reality of retail dynamics, Josh shares the raw truth about branding, leadership, consumer feedback, and the delicate art of balancing a growing, nimble beverage empire. And before we launch in, I want to give a shout out to the partners who make Shelf Space possible. Pacific Coast Distribution, Faskin, Rima, Picnic Creative, TD, and Benchmark 60. You can learn more about these teams and how they help food and beverage businesses grow in the show notes or at shelfspacepodcast.com. Okay, here's my conversation with Josh from GoodLife Brand Collective. Joshua, I've been looking forward to this conversation for many, many years. And now we've got to do a little bit of work together over the last few months. And so, I feel like I'm getting to know you. And now we get to hit record, which is cool. And you don't do a lot of these things. So I kind of feel like you might be the best kept secret in the food and beverage space. So I'm glad to actually have this chat. But I'm going to kick things off with the big question. And that's looking ahead to the future. What's the innovation in the grocery store that would excite you the most?
Well, yeah, it's funny. I mean, from our conversations over the last little while, I think how I grocery shop now is so different. I'm just like have a totally different lens on grocery stores. I mean, I used to just naively just wander around and buy food. Now I just analyzing everything and understanding like why is that shelf the way that shelf is, and like how did these products get organized in these different ways. So as far as what I'm most excited about, I mean, we are in the drinks industry, so I think the evolution of the drink shelf, I'm always just like, what is new, what are we seeing a lot of, and what are the trends, whether that's non-alcoholic beers or if it's like these beverages that sit in these funny places between like not an energy drink but not a pop and it's not in anything. It's just these new types of beverages. So I'm always really paying attention to like what is new and exciting that I can try and test.
Yeah, and the beverage aisle is getting big. It's getting very diverse. And I'm seeing beverages land in all sorts of places and spaces in the grocery store. So it's a wild category. Now, one of my aspirations with Shelf Space is to not dive into founder stories too much. We're going to focus on the future, not so much on the past. However, given how rarely you put yourself into in harm's way like this, one of the questions I have for you is, given your agency background, what's the one thing that agency life did not teach you about running a beverage business?
That's interesting. I think the biggest learning from going from an agency world was that in agency, you have all this time to like come up with ideas and build these big, elaborate presentations about your thinking and your inspiration and all these things. And then like you go run a beverage company and you have no time for any of that. Like I wish I had the amount of time to apply all that strategic thinking, but the industry is moving so fast and the things that we have to put into market have to be like a mix of, yes, inspiration and ideation, but like gut instinct and paying attention to the market. And you have to like do that really quickly, and actually very much how a consumer has to make a decision very quickly around a product and how it connects to them and what triggers and associations they have for drinking occasions. So we as beverage makers are having to make split-second decisions just like our customers. And we wish we had more time. And I'm sure customers wish they had more time to make those decisions as well. But they're often going on gut and intuition. And we have to do that sometimes too.
Yeah, and a lot of founders start their venture with a recipe. Some start with a vision. So walk us through a little bit about like, where did you start? Did the brand lead the liquid? Did the liquid dictate the brand? What was that sort of spark at the beginning?
I mean, I think our business is different now, but at the time, I mean, I came from the world of branding and marketing side of it. So I think we definitely led from a brand, and we wanted to create a house. Field House was our original concept, where different things could live in that house. And it was beverages and brands, but it also was hospitality, and it was culture, and it was community, and all those things could live in that same house. So I think we did start with the brand and then try to build products that felt authentically in that, and not in a boring kind of way. I think if you asked our original community, Abbotsford and the Fraser Valley, what they wanted, they would have said something simple like a pale ale or a great lager or something. But we came out of the box with some really bold flavors and truly challenged the market to be like, try this, like this is different, and like explore what flavor and what craft beer can look like. And now we're doing that with other beverages in our portfolio. But I think that the brand was meant to be not singular, but like dynamic, and it can evolve over time in the way a house and a family evolves over time as well. So we use that metaphor a lot in our business.
Yeah, and let's take a moment there. You have a portfolio of beverages, so a lot of listeners might not know. Even if they have heard of Fieldhouse Brewery, they might not have heard of some of the others. So why don't you walk us through the lineup of brands that you have?
Yeah. So like the first 10 years, our business was based, mostly on Fieldhouse Brewing, and we rode the sort of wave of craft beer for the last 10 years. And it was great. It was a great ride. But as you see that wave kind of dying down, you want to catch the next one. We look to the market and say, hey, where are drinking behaviors shifting, and what are we excited about? And so our first sort of acquisition and partnership into the portfolio was Nice Life Beverages. And we loved them for their focus on innovation and quality, the same things that drove Fieldhouse originally. And then that kind of allowed us to start building this portfolio. So we added rest and recreation, craft cider, a lifestyle, easy drinking cider. We launched Gin and Juice, which was a spinoff of Nice Life into its own brand. It has its own sort of series of SKUs. Then we were excited about the rising trend in really high quality crafted tequila cocktails. We launched Sunrise Hotel, which has its own portfolio of SKUs as well. And we're now moving into the non-alcoholic space with our own brand, Fieldhouse Non-Alcoholic, but also a brand dedicated to innovation and quality called Dry Goods that we're partnering with someone, a guy named Dave, and he started the project, and working together, we're going to grow that brand over the next couple of years as we watch the non-alcoholic part of our industry really grow and explode right now.
And it's the non-alc side that I've been collaborating with you a little bit over the last little while. And it was the salted Mexican lime non-alc by Fieldhouse that really struck me. And I like Corona. I don't love Corona, but I do enjoy it. There's a certain occasion that you're just like, okay, a Corona is a pretty fantastic beverage. And so when I tried your salted Mexican lime, I was like, oh, wait, this isn't just like a non-alc version. It really felt like not only did it really meet my expectations for flavor, it was a branded experience that felt elevated. It felt interesting. I felt compelled to brag about it. And it's just candidly, it's just a non-alc beer. Like, you think I could calm myself down a little bit, but it was just one of those moments where suddenly now any friend that I know drinks Corona is hearing me brag about this Fieldhouse salted Mexican lime. And there's a lot of Mexican lagers out there. This is not a new thing, but the way you guys approached it, what's been the feedback for you? What have you guys been hearing consumers say about your guys' Mexican lager?
The original Mexican lager, which again was inspired by Corona. I mean, it's a beer that's sold globally around the world and beloved by many, especially on those really hot days where you need a cold beverage. I think in a similar way, trying to emulate what is the occasion, what is the feeling you want to have when you're holding that beverage in that occasion where you're sitting in the sun and you just need something really cold and crushable and that has that connection to salt and lime and all those associations that you have with Corona built for years and years. So we wanted to connect to all of those kind of reasons why people love those experiences, because drinks have the drink component, but the drink really often reminds us of very moments in our lives, right? And if you've ever been on vacation in Mexico or you've been drinking that, here in the sunshine, it reminds you of a positive experience, typically of summer. And, we wanted to do that with the original product. And then the next goal was, how do we create that with the non-alcoholic version? And we've learned that there's some challenges, that I think are getting easier for the non-alcoholic space. But really, at the end of the day, we are trying to zone in on a flavor association and a craft of connecting to an experience. And I think if people are feeling that, then we've done our job. And I think that's why people are excited about it.
We'll get back to the show in a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to the fantastic team over at Pacific Coast Distribution. If you're a food or beverage manufacturer, you know how important it is to have your product safely stored and on the move exactly when and where you need it. For years now, Pacific Coast has been the only ambient storage and logistics team that I recommend. For real, I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor. They are food grade certified and an authorized warehouse for beer, wine, and spirits. Whether you're looking for support for 5 pallets or 500 pallets, Ryan, Chris, Ruben, Shane, and their Western Canadian team are the reliable and transparent partners that you're going to want on speed dial. With 2 primary warehouse locations in Langley and Calgary, they're dedicated to keeping grocery stores, liquor stores stocked on time and on budget. If you're looking to optimize your storage, then visit them at pacificcoast.ca. All right, let's get back to the show. And your brands are, I don't know the actual number, you can give me the real number, but I feel like it must be getting close to 2,000 liquor stores in Western Canada. And that sounds like a lot. With only 10 years behind you, 10 years is not that long in the grand scheme of things, but you guys have been in a lot of liquor stores for a long time. Is there still, I know with the evolution of craft, there was a bit of a cult-like following at times, especially early on, a lot of people lining up for limited releases. And maybe that's dialed back a little bit now, but clearly you guys have a dedicated following. What's it been like to nurture that following over a decade across so many points of distribution?
Yeah, it's definitely an evolution. I think the cult light thing is where you can just follow a community at the beginning. They can get on board. And sometimes you're actually having to ride the wave of the industry, not maybe your brand, and they kind of get mixed together a little bit. I think that evolves from sort of the organic growth of people to really having to think about how would we grow. And, if you're at a high percentage of saturation, how do you continue to sell more product, but also not go to a place where you're just feeling desperate to sell product. And that's a big reason why one of our plans that are underway is to move from being a BC company now into Alberta, where we're already selling and growing in that market, and then eventually making our way out to Ontario so we can be a Canadian brand, so that we don't have to feel like we're just forcing and hard selling. We just want to find customers and connect with them and be able to get them to try our products, and hopefully they love it and it becomes something that they want to drink. But I feel like getting into this thing where you're pushing and selling people is just not the place we want to land with our products and our brand. So yeah, I think you have to kind of turn over more rocks to find out more customers that you think will like. Our approach to sales is, we want to make products for the people that appreciate them, but we're not trying to hard sell you on these things either. There's lots of good choices out there in the market.
And what's the dynamic of non-alc in liquor stores? It's a bit of a weird world. It's been weird in grocery for a few years, but it's starting to kind of find its footing. But some liquor stores do sell non-alc. What has that been like to kind of lean into that space?
Yeah, I think you said it. I mean, the challenge is you have no alcohol in an alcohol store, right? And so you have to kind of rectify that relationship of why people are going there. And so people are going there to buy alcoholic beverages in a liquor store. The market is still learning about how do these things work together. And I think we do see more customers that are alternating between an alcoholic beverage and a non-alcoholic, or a beer and then a cocktail. They call it different things like zebra striping, and I think you've used that term before. And I think this is a not fully established market. The customers are still figuring this out. The stores are still figuring these things out. Where do we put them? And, what products do we want to make? And that's a big focus for us for dry goods. Is we've noticed that the market is making products like Pilsners and Pale Ales, which are great. Those are great products. But who's doing the really interesting creative stuff, the pushing the flavor boundaries and pushing the combination of flavors? And I think that's what we want to do and bring to the market. And I think this is just really new. Just like craft beer was like this 10 to 15 years ago, it's taken this long to really establish it as, something that's not going away. So we're excited about it, but we're just learning as well and working with our customers to understand what are their customers looking for and how do we support them.
In so many liquor stores, if they carry non-alc, it's usually in an empty slot somewhere, maybe bottom left behind a case of something else. And it's almost this bastard little area. But for those that are leaning into it, from what I'm hearing and seeing, if I'm buying beverages for an occasion, I know that the chances of one or more people that I'm hosting in my home are going to want to either alternate, like we just talked about, or that they're non-alc completely and that they would really appreciate something that's crafty and local and wonderfully made and not just the usual sparkling sweet crap in a can. If just to say that there's a lot of that in the category. So it'll be interesting to see how liquor stores lean into that. Now, if you compare all the mojo and all the great relationships and everything you've learned in liquor stores over a decade, what are you finding sort of that translation into grocery now that you're leaning with non-alc into the grocery world? Has there been any sort of aha moments or any oh moments?
Yeah, I think in the grocery stores, I mean, and it depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about like the big grocery, the big banner stores, or, local farm markets like Ralph's or Lep, locally here. I mean, for some of these markets that are focused a lot on like local and healthy products, beer isn't the number one thing on their radar. And because, I mean, A, they didn't have a license to sell it, and B, maybe their customers weren't going to those locations for that type of product. So it's pretty new to them, but they're very open to it. I mean, I think they're paying attention, as we're all paying attention to the trends in the craft beer. So they're willing to give it a try. But I think they're just waiting to see how it goes, as we all are with the customers. But I think you were saying earlier about how when you go to someone's house, you see, a range of drinkers. And I think that's what we want to do is, make as many products for that group together and, be part of that conversation. And you're right, you do see more of those people opting for non-alcoholic options. And I think the best thing about our customer, a craft customer, is they're used to buying one of those, two of those, three of those. Whereas I think a more macro customer is buying like a 30 pack of just these, and they're not actually really considering the other people in their household. So I think we're going to get more adoption because I think people are willing to try things, our core customer. I think that's what we're excited about. So we're like, hey, if you like craft beer, try this other craft beer. P.S. It doesn't have alcohol, but, give it a try. And I think a lot of people are starting to do that. I think that's why you're seeing the growth.
And we've seen a metamorphosis of the term local and in some cases craft. Looking ahead, like what's the future of sort of the local movement? In your case, can you scale? Can you keep growing with this idea of, hey, we're crafty, we're local, but yet continue to grow into new regions, into new markets, into new grocery banners? Is that a tension that you're getting more comfortable with, or do you feel like you have to approach it differently?
Yeah, I think it is challenging to be local at scale. I look at brands that are inspiring in this, like Lululemon's a great example. They are one of the largest brands from a lifestyle apparel standpoint. But when you go into a local store, you see someone on the wall that like a local ambassador. And so they've created these touch points to say, hey, we are in this community, and everybody knows Lululemon is a giant, very successful Canadian company. So paying attention to those types of touch points, I think, is really important. The other part we believe it is that hospitality, which is the physical places that you enjoy our beverages, is an important part of our business. Some people have their original location and become this giant production brewery, and there's no physical place to connect to. And in a lot of these new brands, especially in the RTD space, they don't have a physical space to anchor to. And we find, I think that is the physical space to anchor to is the way to be local. And people can say, can point to a location and say, hey, it's from there, or that's the company that makes that. I think there's some really good examples of that in the industry. And I think as we go across Canada, we want to be able to have somebody point to a location and say, hey, they're from that location. And I think that's a way to really drive local. And not every brand takes that strategy. It's something that's really part of our original DNA. And it's something we don't really want to lose as we grow.
Well, and a little bit of insider scoop here is that in the work that we've been doing over the last little while, seeing how the tasting rooms, because you got one in Abbotsford, you got one in Chilliwack, they're beautiful restaurant, kind of brew pub places. You're able to bring new product to those tasting rooms and to your community through the website, but basically through that audience that you've built up, and go, do you like this? Does this taste good? Kind of get that early validation so that when you lean into your other distribution channels, that you've got sort of that proof of concept well beyond just, hey, everybody, do we like this? You're getting consumer feedback right from the people that are giving you money to put it in their mouth, which is pretty special.
Yeah, people vote with their dollars at the end of the day. We know the products that whether we like them or not, or they sound cool, if they don't sell, I mean, no one's voting for that product to stay alive. And then the ones that do stay alive and do grow are the ones that people vote by purchasing. And I think I always remind people, like, if you want to support local businesses, the way to do it is to buy their products. That's the number one thing, because that tells people, it gives them feedback around that thing that you're selling does work for us. Just liking a brand or saying you like a brand but not buying it isn't going to help that business survive. So yeah, so we pay attention to the trends, and they're seasonal, and there's little trends that pop in. Like those are kind of trendy trends, and then there's macro trends of bigger waves that come in, and we want to decide not just how do we jump on the wave, but how do we be part of this sort of societal trend and do it in our own kind of way as well. We're not here to copy what everybody else is doing, but we are paying attention to what's going on out there.
And in the RTD world, there's a lot of innovation. I think in RTD and in snack bars, innovation can kind of come in pretty fast and furious. And I think it was last year when, I got served protein water. I kind of thought like, all right, we got to tap out at protein water. Like innovation's got to reach some point. It's never going to end. But nonetheless, when you look ahead into the beverage industry and you think, okay, all this iteration's happening, all this innovation's happening, what innovation gets you the most excited when it comes to liquid? Is it just more functional? Is it putting more stuff in beverages? Is it really picking a lane with a specific ingredient that's going to be like, this is new? Where's sort of your mad science mind going these days?
Yeah, I think it can't be about an ingredient or a flavor because those come and go, and we've seen those. There's always a trend of the moment. I think what we're most interested in is if you think about the alcohol industry and how alcohol has been part of people's culture, whether that's wine on a table as part of Italian culture, or it's beer associated with sports or summer and lifestyle. One thing that the alcohol industry has done a good job of is connecting their products to really positive associations. That's why people are connected to the product, not because of course there's a functional beverage benefit of alcohol. Makes you feel pretty good sometimes if you need to. But the other part is that it makes an association to that experience and occasion where you're typically, hopefully, around friends at a table or at a party or whatever it is. So the question is, how does the non-alcoholic beverages also do that? Coffee is a great example of this. Coffee has two components: the coffee, which people love, but there's the association of how do you drink coffee, where do you drink coffee, and how is that part of your life? And I think some of these new beverages, I wonder if they're going to establish those occasions as well. Like, what is the occasion for a functional beverage? What is the occasion for a sparkling water? We have to think about those things because those are more impactful on our lives than just the liquid. The liquid is great. It can be really great, but if there's no occasion, it's going to be kind of not as rich of an experience. So I think that's what we're curious about is how does non-alcoholic connect to people's lives and their experiences? And I don't know if it's fully formed, but I think you can look to brands like Coca-Cola back in the day, and their associations to the brand were really strong, not just the liquid. If you go back to how that business was built originally.
And how do you see CBD playing a role in the next few years of beverage innovation?
Yeah, I do think it is inevitable that it will come. This is, I think, more of a regulatory issue than anything. If you look to the States, where we do look to sort of for inspiration as things kind of bubble up from the South, you see some really cool lifestyle beverages that are offering sort of the same types of experiences that alcohol offers, but they, swapped out the alcohol for CBD or cannabis or THC. So I think that will come. Our regulations really prevent that. You can't consume those beverages in a hospitality setting. How they're labeled and how you buy that product it makes you feel like you're drinking some kind of toxic material with all the safety labels and all that stuff. So I think until we normalize that, it won't become a normal part of our society. But I think, like anything, over time, it may get there. We're just kind of in a wait and see kind of mode. But I think people are interested about it. We make some terpene, cannabis kind of flavored inspired beers, and people are really, really interested in it. So I think there's a genuine interest from the market.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love how creative that is. What other CPG brands have your attention? So stepping away from the beverage world for a moment, what are the food brands out there that are in the grocery store, in the convenience stores, that are out there that consumers love, that you feel like can teach you and your team something about what it's like to build products and to build a business out loud?
Yeah, I think an easy one for us is someone like Midday Squares, another great Canadian company. And, the way building their company and telling their story is, a very behind the scenes look, which is really cool to watch, a business sort of unfold in front of you. And it's from all the lows and the low side and the high side. They're celebrating the wins, and they're so animated, and energy is so great. And they really share authentically the challenges that businesses like ours go through to create CPG products and launch them to the market. So we find a lot of inspiration in what they're doing and their storytelling, marketing. So I think that's a cool way to build a company, is bring people along for the whole adventure. And I can admittedly say we could do more of that. We could tell more people more about our story, which is something we're planning to do over the next evolution of our business. Is just make sure people understand that this is a real company by real humans that are trying really hard to figure it out. And we make mistakes and we learn, but we also celebrate a lot of wins along the way too. And that's really fun to do as a team. So I really give a lot of kudos to them, and watching them be successful is really exciting, especially as another Canadian brand.
That's a great example. And, Jake is a great example of a good hype man. He's dancing with retailers in the grocery aisle, which is always fun. But yeah, they're a great example of just, blood, sweat, and tears, living it out loud, sharing the highs and lows. Yeah, and it's not as easily done as they make it look really easy, to be honest. They sort of have this Ryan Reynolds sort of jam, just being really raw. Truth is, it probably is at times extremely difficult to do. And I would imagine sometimes their team finds it difficult to manage. How big is your team, and what's it like leading a large, you have teams across all these different brands, all these different places and spaces. What's been the leadership journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're lucky to have a great team of people that have joined us, and, have been from Parker, who was our first employee, and he's been with us for 10 years and now kind of leads our R&D, for something like that. And then to people that have come in and complemented what we're doing, bringing in new expertise, and even working with you, and helping us to understand, what does the grocery space look like? How do we think differently about this, and make sure that we're not caught in rigid thinking about how we look at different markets and opportunities. Our team represents, I think, really great subject matter expertise in lots of areas. And then I find that where we succeed is in our collaboration. When we look at a product, we ask the sales team, we ask the marketing team, we ask the production team, and hopefully we can make a really good decision based on those factors. Some companies are driven by sales, some are driven by production, some are driven by marketing. We believe that it's the success of the three coming together where we can have a decision that considers all the key stakeholders. So I think that's the winning side. The challenge is, as we grow, we have to learn the whole adage, what got you here won't get you there. So we all have to learn, myself included, about how to take ourselves to the next level. And, my job is to support the team. I don't always have the answers. That's very clear, but I'm willing to work with our team to find those answers or work together on that. So yeah, there's definitely challenges ahead of us to learn to be a new type of business, but it's also exciting. We want to be a growth company. We want to be a place that people can come learn and grow their careers. And we've seen amazing stories at our company about people starting here and ending up over here. And hopefully we just keep doing that as we grow.
And you guys just celebrated 10 years in business. So you had alumni, staff, people who were in the hospitality side come back it must have been really fun to sort of really celebrate a decade in business when a lot of businesses don't make it to 10 years. So that must have been fun to celebrate.
Yeah, actually, the most exciting thing about bringing back people is to see what people did after Fieldhouse or after, working in another company, because we've watched people go on and open everything from yoga cafes to other hospitality businesses. One girl opened an amazing ice cream shop. It's wildly successful, called Banter Ice Cream. And every time someone calls you and says, hey, I have to tell you something, you already know what it is. My first reaction is, oh no. And then they tell you, and then you're like, oh yes, that is so amazing for you. And I'm so happy you're going to go on to do something. And I tell people when they stay with Fieldhouse as long as we create some value in your life. And that value could be everything from economic value as far as getting paid, to friendships, to learning about products, learning about community, learning about local agriculture. We have a farm, but stay as long as we add value. And when your time's up, high five, we wish you well, and come back and visit. So it's been, a really beautiful journey that way, being able to watch people do cool things after Fieldhouse, and we can be a little bit part of their journey as well.
Now let's talk about the math for a second. You're about to relaunch a fundraising campaign. I think the timing was you guys were started just prior to the Christmas break with some key investors, and now it's like version 2.0 of the raise. Talk about the size of the raise and what you guys are looking to do with the partners that you're looking to bring on.
Yeah, I mean, why we're raising capital? I mean, we've never actually, since we first started our business, and obviously had to have some startup funds. Really, the business has grown really organically. It's grown based on the money we've generated from the operating model. But to grow into these new markets and to create the products we want to create, we need more resources, and people are resources, and money is a resource as well. So it's being put towards partnerships, through some of the acquisitions that we're already started doing, as well as sales and marketing efforts to go into new markets like Alberta and Ontario. And beyond. So we just needed to look at our plan and say, hey, what resources do we need to make sure we can get there? So over the course of the year, we're going to raise about $1.5 million. We're about $350,000 just we started before Christmas, but we haven't even done a public announcement of that raise, which will be coming March kind of forward. So that's an opportunity to tell people about what we're doing. We've already got some great investors on board, which is really exciting, and we're really excited about their partnership with us. And we're now be able to kind of reach out and say, for all those people that reached out to me over the last 10 years and said, hey, I'd really like to invest in Fieldhouse, and we had no way to do that. Now there's a way to do that, be part of our community in a small way or a big way if you want, and know what our plan looks like. So we've got a 5-year plan that we're really excited about, and we're already nice thing is we're chipping away at that plan. And we want to share those updates with people so they can kind of just come along the journey. Just similar to the Midday Squares. It's they've shown their capital raises and how they're raising money for the purpose of growing that company. In a similar way, we want to bring people along for the ride.
And how do you fill yourself up? Because you've got a lot of things going all the time. What are some of the ways that you sort of fill your, JV bucket? And I'm actually really curious because we always trade book suggestions, and you always drop books on me that I'm like, oh, hadn't read about that one yet. So what are some of the influences that you've got as a business leader and founder?
On the business side, I have to grow as well. And if no one's going to challenge me and make me read a book. So I have to make myself do that. So from books and podcasts, I mean, that's how I do my work at the farm. I just slap on a podcast. So I'll be listening to this one to see how I did. And, that's just gaining insights from people that have gone before us. And that's a great way to learn as founders and entrepreneurs. And then obviously my family is my relief, right? So I've got 3 kids. And of course, my wife is my best partner in crime in the business. So that relief, from the day-to-day of all the things that we're doing, to just on Friday night have pizza and a movie is so valuable, to pause and really pay attention. So I'm lucky to have that kind of component to the busy life, is this ability to have downtime and go watch a volleyball game or take the dog for a walk with our kids. That's the most precious time there is.
Or go weed some carrots in your backyard, right?
Yes, there's a lot of weeding, mowing. There's a lot of podcast time. So
that's awesome.
That's what I look for.
JV, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. I think, seeing what the team is making and how hard everyone's working to grow, not only in liquor stores, but to lean into grocery is so cool, and excited for all this to come. So thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for helping tell the stories of some of the cool projects and Canadian brands out there. It's people like you that really promote our industry. And so we're super grateful.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Shelf Space. If you like what you hear, I would be eternally grateful for a 5-star rating and a quick share on social. Your support means the world to me and our partners, TD, Fasken, Rima, Pacific Coast Distribution, Picnic Creative, and Benchmark 60. For bonus content and resources from our sponsors, go to shelfspacepodcast.com. I'm Corwin Hebert. I'm glad we're on this rocket ship together. I'll see you in the future.